welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Education and COVID-19. And I've been privileged to talk to a lot of people, some people that I've known for a long time and other people that I really don't know that well. So that's part of why this is kind of fun to be able to do this. And today I'm with Allison Curry, who is going to share her story around all of this and throw in a little perspective from Alaska, which is kind of basically Canada, but not. So
Canada's hat.
yeah. So Allison, you want to introduce yourself first of all?
Sure. I'm Allison Curry. I teach in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is the city right in the middle of Alaska. Right now I teach at a K-8 school. I presently am a content area teacher. I teach writing to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, but I've spent most of my life in intermediate straight grade classrooms. I also teach digital citizenship as a class. And our school district has about 13,000 students, 23 elementary schools, charter schools. So we're a good size. And I've been teaching for 21 years. I started teaching in 1998, so I guess this is year 21.
Okay.
And this is the school district I grew up in. I went to K-12 here. I moved away for a while. My husband was in the military, and now we're back home again. So it's wonderful to be back home teaching in my hometown.
Well, that's great. Well, and again, gives you lots of credibility to speak on behalf of. And again, I when I say that, I'm my goal is just to sort of get, as many people from as many different jurisdictions and places to share their experience. My first question is, because this is the part that's sort of most near and dear to my heart, is what are you being told from your district, from the state, in terms of this is what we need you to do in the foreseeable future? What's the task of the Alaskan teacher?
Well, to start with our timeline, we went to spring break on March 6th. Our spring break is very early. And so when we said goodbye to our kids on March 6th, we thought we were coming back. We didn't even know this was happening. In fact, I did a presentation on COVID-19 with my class on Thursday. And the kids were kind of like, I had to, kick 2 kids out of my room for putting Corona beers on their Pear Duck slides. And, it was a big joke, right? And so then we went to spring break, and then all of a sudden it came out that we might not have kids come back because the governor shut down instruction or in-person instruction until May 1st. And then gave us 2 weeks of in-service. And at that point, it was obviously extremely confusing because teachers were gone on spring break. People don't usually stay in Alaska for spring break. They go to Hawaii, they go to Mexico. So not only did we have teachers not even here in town, then we had the issue of them coming back and not being able to come to work because of health restrictions. And so at the very beginning, it was, let us figure out what's going on and we'll get out information to you. So the school district had about a week. That spring break gave them a week of padding so that they could kind of figure out what to do. When we came back, we were in 2 weeks of in-service. So teachers were working, students non-contact. So we weren't expecting kids to do anything. Last Monday was our first day of actual remote learning. So during that 2 weeks, it was the district did a really good job of putting together one set of engagement activities on their website so that we could just tell parents to go there and choose your grade level. And they did that on their own. They really didn't have teacher input on it. But that was a good thing because it at least gave teachers time to kind of figure out how they were going to attack this. And once we came back, I feel like my school district does a great job because we have a teaching and learning department, which is obviously tells the teachers what to do. And they're very, they have a lot of empathy. They're all former teachers. Our superintendent was a teacher in this district. So there's a lot of like, I know where you've been, I get it. And from the very beginning, it's been, we have to be sensitive to our families. We have to be aware that there's a huge digital equity gap here. We have kids that have no internet and will never have it because they live in a rural spot where there just isn't broadband. And then we have kids with no devices. And so we were trying to figure out how to make that happen. But as a district, the message to teachers has been, It's okay to not recreate school. It's okay to just scale it back a little bit, figure out what you want to do and then cut that in half and cut it in half again. I haven't felt like they have been bringing down these big edicts upon us about what you have to do and not do. So I feel like they've been pretty sensitive to teachers' needs. It's been really good.
Well, and that, and again, that's kind of what I'm always hoping to hear. Anything, and I just want to build on that idea of messaging, because I think in this time, leadership is so critical and communication is so critical. So has there been any really, I know you've touched on it, but anything specific from a principal or leadership, like a phrase or a concept that just has been really helpful to you, a message that you felt like, okay, that I really needed to hear that? So I don't know if again, you may have sort of answered that already, but I just wanted to know if there was anything even more specific around that that's been helpful.
Well, one principal, it's actually a principal at one of the high schools, and my daughter goes there. So I got this information,
Right.
but she put out a message that I actually started using with my own class. And that is because we don't have grades, like nothing's being graded this quarter. It's just being, you're passed. But her message was, this is the time to lean in. This is the time to lean into your learning and figure out what are the things that you want to be better at in August when we start back again. And I'm all about student ownership and student voice. And this has been such a great message, because in the normal way that we were doing things, there's no way I would ever say that or have the ability to say that to my kids, because we're testing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And no kid is leaning into testing. And so that was my thing, that's one of my silver linings, is that now we're finally able to say to kids, ball's in your court. If you know you're having trouble with XYZ, let me help you. Let's build that relationship. So now the formalities are out of the way and we can really concentrate on those relationships. So that's been one of the best things I think that's come out of it, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. So again, I think about Alaska. I think that there's sort of just by geography and everything else, a bit of a more of a, and I watch, a lot of the Alaskan shows or whatever. So you get this stereotype or not that remoteness is accepted as like, and it's almost cherished to some degree. So with that in mind, and knowing that, like, as you said, you have a number of students who just never have access. Are you more at peace, I guess, with their remoteness and not having access because that's just how they've been? Or are you still trying to mitigate that in some way? Like, I feel like if, in an urban setting, kids that don't have remote access, or even in rural parts of North America, people are trying to do that. But you're kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these people have lived with this remoteness for a long time, and it's, I would think, not a big deal. So talk to me a little bit about how you, as a teacher, and how those parents are sort of dealing with that.
Well, from the very beginning, we were planning on having an offline and an online track for our students to decide to be on, or their families to decide to be on. Now, whether my school district could have fixed this problem from the very beginning, this is one of the conversations we'll have to have when we debrief from all of this. Every student that we have, whether they have connectivity or not, they obviously live by a road where they can get to school, right? Nobody's taking a dog team to school, right? So we all have a road. And I saw that there were districts that were doing where they put a hotspot in a bus and it would go sit in an area, in a pocket where there's a lot of students. And then the students could come walk over with their Chromebook and at least sync it up. But I just don't feel like we were ready for that yet. So I think it is an accepted thing that there are just going to be kids that are not online. And yes, here in Alaska, it's very, very accepted that maybe you don't have running water, and that's on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you use an outhouse and you just always have. And so we deal with, we have the entire spectrum of students and entire spectrum of remoteness. And so a lot of people that do live a remote lifestyle, that's not a problem. Like, that's not a problem we need to fix. And so we were able to put together grade level materials for, at least at my school, and I think this is how most schools did it, grade level materials for each student. And then we had specified pickup times, and the families would come and pick up, like, here's my 6th grade bag. And in it was this packet that my team and I put together, a math book, a composition notebook, contact information for teachers so they can call us. So I feel like we weren't trying to fix that problem because we knew that it's something that we just weren't going to change. So we just planned for there to be two different ways for kids to engage.
Yeah, interesting. Um, when you sort of look at this a little bit more long term, and you know, whatever, let's just make the assumption, whether we're right or not, that this is to the end of the school year, and so this is just the way it's going to be. What are you most concerned with, you know, in that long term? And I know, interesting that you've had this 2 weeks to sort of plan and prep, and I'm sure even within those 2 weeks, you know, you'll modify and change. But what do you think about long term being that you're worried about?
What am I worried about? Well, I'm a little bit worried about students. You know, my school serves a pretty marginal population. We are a Title I funded school, so we have a certain amount of kids that are qualified for free reduced lunch. Our governor announced last week that physical schools would remain closed for the rest of the year. So until that point, kids thought they were coming back May 1st. But we get out of school May 19th. And I was like, they're not bringing us back for 12 days, you guys. I just know it. You know, the thing I worry about the most is that there's an entire quarter of school that's gone by, and I don't really worry about the content as much, but I know where some of my kids live, and I know what their lives are like, and it breaks my heart when they are at school, and now that they're not, and I know where they are, and that's the hardest thing for me, is that as a teacher, we build these relationships, and we just don't have the ability to help them right now just because of what's going on. So, you know, I have a virtual lunch group, you know, but the ones that really need to be there aren't going to be there. You know, so that's what I worry about. It's not even about will you learn how to multiply decimals? It's, you know, how are you going to be okay surviving until August when these kids come back? And I teach sixth graders, so they're not coming back.
Yeah.
You know, they're going on to another school. So this was a big year for them. And so that kind of breaks my heart.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're not alone with that same sentiment. So just a little bit on the lighter side. So I'm always curious because I've worked at home for the last, you know, 10 years or so. So I'm used to this. And so it's not strange for me to spend a day, I don't want to say my pajamas, but you know what I mean? Like I know all, like, this stuff is, but I'm always curious from a teacher's perspective who's used to, you know, a pretty tight routine and regiment during the day. What have you noticed in the last little while that you've just sort of caught you off guard, like, oh, this is weird, like I don't do this, or like anything kind of fun or lightly just sort of hits you at the moment of this is just not normal?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been positive, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, not a freedom, but it's hard not to feel like you're not doing everything you should be doing. Like, you know, when you teach an entire day, it's like it's going left and right, and I'm always the person people come to fix things, especially computer wise. And so that's been my thing, is I have this automatic like guilt that I'm not doing enough, even though there's literally nothing I could do. I mean, I could go make some spreadsheets or something, I guess, but
Right.
but you know, for me, it's been completely positive because I can kind of take things at my own pace. I got to set my own office hours, and but it is hard to just sit in a chair.
Yeah.
I can't. I just, you know, sitting in the chair all day is just
Right.
not. So I usually take it in chunks, and I have a third grader who is not really great at wanting to do things on her Chromebook. So I make myself take breaks, but I just have loved all the family time. I mean, I'm a mom of a family where we don't see each other. You know, we're ships passing in the night. My husband's a commercial pilot. It's like, you know, hi, see you in 12 hours, maybe, you know, and now we're just here together. And I love all the forced family time. My kids probably don't love it, but we love it.
Yeah, no, and you know, and that's the sort of the interesting dynamics, is that there's some really sad stories, like you've mentioned, about your kids that are more vulnerable and maybe don't have a great home life.
Mhm.
It's horrible for them, but for people like yourselves, it's like, wow, this is a gift, and how do we you know, not take advantage of it? We need to. So and then my last question is, like, when you think about school in general, uh, again, when we look back at this, or when this starts up in September, or whatever, what good then do you think, you know, besides your own, you know, personal, hey, this is great that we had family time, but in terms of education itself, what do you see as a potential positive that comes as a result of this?
Well, I think there are several. I think, you probably understand, like when you've been teaching this long, you remember when it was like when we just had like one big Mac computer in the room and it was like the big prized possession, and then we've watched ed tech just kind of take off and change through all this. And so everything I do is in such perspective that I understand the way it used to be, and the way education and just pedagogy has changed so much in 20 years. But I feel like right now we can really be a little bit of, disrupting a little bit, because educational technology was kind of on the fringe. It was one of those things where this is a tool you could use if you really wanted it, but you'd be fine doing your job right now without it. And now that conversation has switched into, wow, like we need these things in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing with being I do a lot of training too, I'm always trying to make teachers more efficient. I'm never trying to change what they do, but I am always trying to save them time and realize they can get more done if they just learn a new skill set. And so that has been my big positive, is that this conversation now has changed into, there are tools out there that can help you be a better teacher, but you can still keep all the things that are important to you. And I have made relationships with teachers in other buildings that I would never have met if this hadn't happened, because some of us have formed like a little task force where we're helping teachers reach out to each other in other buildings. And then the last thing is that now that teachers have this extra time, I know I'm not the only one that feels like I have a lot of extra time right now. We can now take this time and think about how we can actually grow professionally in a meaningful way, because teachers are always saying, well, I don't have time, and I'm not giving up my summer for that. Well, here you are, you're getting paid, you have all this time. Now you can have deep thoughts about how you'd like to grow professionally.
Yeah.
And but the script is changing. We took away grades, we took away tests, and kids are still learning. And so then we have to have a conversation about, are those things really important? And I'm a big fan of competency-based learning and standards-based grading. And so for me, it's been like, yes, like I think people are going to get it now. So that's been my
Well,
silver lining for sure.
yeah. And I just think about like, how do we not waste this time uh, without doing something to your point, and productive around really important conversations that we never have had time for. You got it now.
Yep.
So how do we do that? And again, the challenge of that, of course, is balancing that with the fact that there are still teachers who, maybe aren't as fortunate as you are, having a husband and, a really great functioning family that are dealing with that on their own too. And so there's even that variance within the teaching community that we have to be sensitive and say, like, listen, first things first, make sure you take care of your family, make sure people are well. And
Yes.
then, but at the same time, I think, boy, aren't those the things that we should have been saying to people and students all the time? Like, let's prioritize here what's important. So we are, as a result of this, having to decide what is important.
Right.
And then, like, I love the the idea of leaning in when it is the time, for those people that are ready to go, let's lean in. So yeah, this is a fascinating time in our lives that certainly we will remember, but I hope that we do some things differently as a result, to make teaching and learning even better. So thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
This was great.
Yes, absolutely. Fun to do this.
And maybe one day we'll connect again, in a better situation.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, take care.
All right. Thank you. See you, Dean.
Bye.